Alright, and we're into the final game of the first Forgotten Empires live community stream. Definitely encourage you guys to follow Forgotten Empires on Twitch, as well as on Facebook and Twitter for updates on when they're streaming next. We are, of course, also open to your guys' suggestions on the format and whatnot, things you would like to see. We're going to definitely be mixing it up a bit here, so sometimes we'll be doing these live community games and whatnot, and we'll be focusing more on answering questions. Sometimes we'll be doing a more of a gameplay-focused commentary like I normally do on my personal pages. Sometimes we might be doing developers versus community special games, and that's something that we would like to do at some point. And really the whole point of doing these streams is, again, to provide that method of communication, that line of communication between the devs and the community. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask during this game. We're going to be watching Dobbs versus Radida playing a 1v1 on Arena. Radida is a little inebriated right now and insists that he can take on Dobbs, so we're going to see how that turns out. I'm going to start by briefly introducing the players. So we have Dobbs on the right side of the map playing as the Blue Franks, and Radida playing as the Red Franks on the other side of the map. We are playing on the new Rise of the Rajas DLC and a special custom random map that I made myself, which is functionally the same as Arena, but contains the new graphics assets. So, these players will be playing as the Franks, a civilization that has received a lot of balance changes in the DLCs. For those of you who are not aware, Forgotten Empires is the game development and design company behind the new expansions for Age of Empires 2 HD Edition on Steam. The Franks are a lot stronger in the DLCs, since they now have an economy bonus, and they also have access to technologies like Chivalry, for example. Chivalry, their unique tech that makes the stables work 40% faster. This technology is huge for a number of reasons. For starters, it actually improves the research rate, as well as the unit creation speed. So you will research technologies like Paladin very, very quickly, and then you just get to flood your opponent with things like the already buffed Franks Paladins, and you also can flood them with light cavalry, which are okay now that the 20% extra hit points applies to all stable units and not just knights. So it does give them a reasonably okay scout rush, and it also gives them some okay light cavalry rating in the late game. Now, the score difference might already be big, but I feel like Dobbs just started with more walls. So that's certainly going to be part of it. Radida coming in with his elephant lure. Will this villager die? That is the question, and the answer is no. The elephant almost turning around, but did not, which is excellent for him. So Radida will begin his elephant lure here. Dobbs also on his elephant lure right about now. Both these players do have a bit of a decaying goat going on. Dobbs might get housed, intimidated by Radida, but he will probably be fine. This will slow him down negligibly at best. Yeah, the tech tree can be confusing at times because work rate and creation speed are different things. It's not always immediately clear, but Chivalry also affects the rate at which technology is researched and how fast units are created. Terminator 4 asks, any plans for doing these balanced discussions with pro players more often? That's something that we would love to do, and your feedback really matters here. If people would like to see us doing more balanced discussions with pro players like we did with the Viper and Tato, you can actually find that full VOD on the Forgotten Empires YouTube page, youtube.com/user/Cision, if you would like to watch that VOD. We would like to do more of those for sure. Yeah, just keep everyone in the loop with regards to balance, and particularly with some very valuable feedback. And we're just totally overjoyed that the pro players, Tato and the Vipers, seem to be enjoying the new expansions, because it's difficult to get them to feel right, considering that it's a difficult legacy to carry forward. Oh my god, Dobbs getting... God, that bug, I've seen that before. The villager just like stands and fights, and that one's kind of difficult to reproduce. We're really not sure what's going on there, but this might be the equalizer that we need to create an interesting game. Dobbs off to a little bit of an unfortunate start here, but again, he should be fine. One villager down, just to keep things interesting. Oh yeah, and it's also 40% faster, not like it takes 40% less time to create units. So Yeah, that's also something I misunderstood with the Malians team bonus at first. 80% faster is not as fast as it seems, basically. So 40% faster is 1.4 times as fast. Let me know, of course, if we have any additional questions in the chat. In the future, once I get all the preliminary questions out of the way, I imagine that we will be returning to my usual style of more gameplay-focused commentary, but since this is the first time we were really doing this, I want to make sure that everyone feels super involved in the process and everyone knows exactly what's on our minds. Of course, though, it goes without saying that there are some questions that I have to give vague answers to, and some I can't answer yet. Neil Kaz says, rebalance. What typically happens in Expert 1v1 with something like Huns versus Rise of the Rajas civs? So this is relatively new territory in terms of balance. You see a little bit of an ostrich that oh, no, so that doesn't work. If you shoot the ostrich with the town center, it actually, if you kill an animal with the town center, you actually don't get to gather food from it. You actually have to kill it with a villager, so... oops. So, Huns versus Rise of the Rajas civs on Arabia. Again, this is relatively unexplored territory because only recently have the expert players had an incentive to actually play on the new expansions. While most of them seem to be echoing that the DLCs have been very fun and they've been enjoying playing them, unless there's money involved, it's difficult for them to justify playing the new expansions as opposed to 1.0C. So now that there have been major tournaments being hosted in them, thanks to Escape Gaming and Microsoft for hosting these, they are now starting to play them. So, what exactly do you mean what happens with the Huns versus the Rise of Rajas is? Because the game still plays relatively similarly with, you know, we have nerfs to things like walls, so Arabia games would be a little bit more aggressive, but the Huns would play relatively similarly. Their strategies are a little bit weaker than they were before, but with the nerfs to things like walls, I think that the Huns' standard aggressive Arabia playstyle would still be fine. And then in terms of the Rise of Raja civs, what they would do heavily depends on what civ they are. For example, in like a Khmer versus Huns 1v1 Arabia, I would expect to see fast Feudal Age into scouts from the Khmer player to really try and bully the Huns early on. If you're the Burmese, maybe we would expect... So it heavily depends. That question is very broad. But hopefully I did a decent job answering that regardless. Like as the Burmese, we could see like a rush into a men-at-arms rush, and then that would force the Huns player to adapt, for sure. Gloria says, Rez, can that bug be fixed where the Vil decides to fight the boar, elephant/rhino? That one is very difficult to reproduce, but of course we're always looking to fix bugs whenever are possible. This one's sort of out of, somewhat beyond the Forgotten Empire's realm of control, but that's one that we're certainly looking into. Terminator says, any plans to nerf the Malian's eco bonuses? So, we have no plans at present, but never say never, or at least we have nothing to announce yet. It's something that we have actually been discussing internally, and the trick of the Malian's economy is that, I mentioned this before the game starts, but the Escape Gaming Masters tournaments have had very unorthodox settings, which create a rather warped perception of balance. So I think it's important that, as a community, we don't derive too many balanced conclusions, at least from like the pick ban statistics and whatnot. Because, we had things like you ban 5 civilizations, but only the first 2 bans are visible to your opponent. This is not something that we see in a standard Age of Empires metagame. In fact, we don't have bans, period. So that type of thing really shifts stuff around. In addition to that, we had a very limited pool of civilizations and maps, and a lot of the players were not really super familiar with all the new civs, so... I think that makes the Malians as a civilization seem a lot stronger than they are, and that's something, though, that we are still looking into regardless, because the Malians, as a civilization, even if Escape Gaming Masters is not indicative of the overall metagame, it still can provide some insight. So we are still looking at that. When it comes to the Malians' economy, if the Malians do seem to be too strong, it would be difficult to adjust the Malians' economy in a way that would feel good to players, because there's not too much room to balance that without really changing the bonuses. Like, something that we're not a huge fan of doing would be, for example, changing the way their gold mining bonus works so like it only applies to gold shaft mining, because that makes the bonus feel It's harder to understand and it feels like less impactful. And then with like the building bonus, there's not too much room to be adjusted there, but that is something that could be tweaked. Like maybe it would be like 10% in the Dark Age and then 15% in the Feudal Age plus beyond. So there's some room there. Welcome, Linus. If the Malians turn out to be too strong, we would examine them in a wide variety of aspects, beyond just the economy. We could end up nerfing the economy, who knows. But we're always watching that stuff very carefully. Neon Ghost says, is there a water color or something heating up your room somewhere? I'm really sorry about that. There's nothing I can do. One of my roommates is taking a shower, and I can't do anything about that, so sorry about that. Thank you, Jezard, for interacting with us today. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the stream, TCMQ. I'm very glad to hear that you've been enjoying the stream so far. So, one thing that's interesting strategy-wise is that Dobbs actually opted to build a stable in the Feudal Age and make a couple of scout cavalry, really to try and control those relics, which we see being very, very important when it comes to 1v1 high-level arena gameplay. Really wants to make sure that he controls all those relics to give him a huge edge as the game drags on. Radida, though, opting to ignore the stable early on. How many relics does he have? So he only has one. So even though Dobbs has slowed himself down by making a couple of scout cavalry, this could end up paying dividends for him if he can manage to snag 4 relics. It'll generate so much gold early on. Yeah, so many roommates. Okay, hopefully it's not too bad, because really there's really nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. Working from home, indeed, Norman Timbers. I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to do that, considering that with my really bad allergies, it would be harder for me to find a job that I can do that wouldn't really aggravate those. That being said, though, something like an office job would probably be fine. So, Radida needs to find a way to snag these relics. Relics are going to be a huge part of Arena here. Mostly because, like, Monks plus Mangonels is such a strong combination on Arena. It's just a great way to pressure these walls, and the arena games tend to go on for longer, so you get more value out of the relics. And you can also hide behind your walls and whatnot. He's going to get 2 scout conversions here. This is actually pretty good for Radida. And if he can keep one of his monks alive... Whoa! Look at this. Look at these jukes. What's going on? But he's going to go for the monk. Will he get the monk before we get a conversion off? The answer is yes, as these monks are out of faith. And now Dobbs moving the line forward with the Siege Workshop. The Monks plus Mangonels combination is just insane on Arena. It's one that we see typically dominate the metagame. It's good, though, to see some scouts being mixed in here, because I do think that this is a good counter to the very standard Monk plus Mangonel opening. Radida will grab another relic, so worst case scenario for him, it's going to be a 2-3, and that's totally fine. So that won't really influence the outcome of the match too much, and... well, Dobbs still... let's see, does Dobbs have all 3 of them yet? No, he does not. And there's still 1 relic over here, which Radida is actually poised to grab, so this is great. Sagam says, I'm glad I found this stream. This is a really nice way to discuss and ask questions about the game and newest patches. Thank you so much, Sagam. We try. I look forward to doing future streams here, just to keep that line of communication going. Neon Ghost is taking a nice and long shower, only because I'm streaming. Blackman's asked if I can do an Obi-Wan Kenobi impersonation. Not very well. 19 Cheesy asks, any possibility that Hidden Civ pick will be added to HD? Sure, it's nothing important, but I loved it on Voodoo before turning to HD. Nothing immense important, though, to be honest, but it would be a nice little gimmick. Completely agreed, 19 Cheesy 92. It's difficult for me to discuss features at times, and there will be some times where I just can't really answer that kind of question, because we don't want to make promises that we can't necessarily deliver on. So the answer to almost all feature requests is when it's ready, we will announce it. It's just it's a very standard game company style thing that we just have to do. Hidden Civ pick has been one that we have been discussing. There will be times when I answer it and I'll say that it's not something that we've really been looking into, like whether or not we will add an option to the options menu where you can add an afro to your monks, change their hairstyle. We have no plans to add hair customization options for monks in Age of Empires 2 at present. In terms of hidden civs, that is something that we would like to see, yes. And I hope that it can be added in a future patch. that one is on the list of feature requests that we've been discussing. So the question is will it happen here? That pizzas, but every time he says economy, it gets 10% faster. Oh no. Oh my, oh my. So, microtransaction hats. Oh, it's coming, guys. So, I saw some town bell shenanigans there. I continually accidentally ring my town bell in my own personal games because I keep pressing B to build a building. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but Radida is actually somehow going to... Wow, gonna get that kill. Even though I thought that was pretty risky of him to move in there. So, this game's actually fairly close, so major credit to Red for being able to take on the 2.2k rated player. Dobbs is very, very good at Age of Empires 2, so Radida really holding his own. But Dobbs pulling ahead a little bit. Radida at 65 population, going for a bit of a riskier play, I would say. Dobbs at 77 population, so Dobbs playing a more standard game of Age of Empires 2, really trying to get his goal of 100-ish villagers, go to the Imperial Age at around 30-ish minutes in, apply some pressure then. Radida taking a big risk, and his big gambit is he's going straight to the Imperial Age a little bit early, making some significant cuts to his economy. In fact, he should really be producing villagers at this town center while he's doing this. What can he do with that Imperial Age upgrade, though? What are his plans? And it looks like it's going to involve archer ranges. Is he going to go for chemistry into hand cannoneers? This is an interesting play from Radida, and we'll have to see if this pays off. Hand cannoneers are, of course, decent against knights because the knights themselves are indeed melee. Hand cannoneers much better, more accurate versus melee targets, and a very high attack stat. So it looks like we are going to see, yes, chemistry coming down. This is a slow strategy, though. When you're not playing something like the Turks, the strategy is very strong as the Turks because chem is for free. You can even do it as the Malians, because chem research is faster. Here, though, it's a little bit weaker, because you have to wait for chemistry to research. It's such a slow technology before the hand cannoneers really come out. So, Radida, can he hold on? The answer is maybe, honestly. He's getting some great mangonel exchanges here. Oh, no, both mangonels will indeed trade, but this town center will stay alive. Radida's got the money. He does need to keep producing villagers, though. This is a classic mistake I see players make all the time when they're playing these, like, Turks games that go for a fast imp. You can't stop making villagers once you hit imp. This is almost guaranteed to lose him the game if he just doesn't make villagers. Okay, good. He is going to. Yes! A lot of people just forget to keep booming after the initial Turks fast imp into hand cannons, so we'll have to see. People want to make the microtransaction monk hats and the hair customization options a thing. All right. I'll pitch it to Microsoft in the next meeting. Let's make it happen. Microtransaction hats in Aoe2. Confirmed. Kanyeto says, how do the monk hair customization options differ between the meso civs and other civs? We'll have a feather, we'll have a ceremonial feather headdress, customizable ones for the meso monks. Shanae says, Bethesda gives promises all the time and basically fulfills none of them. When they can do it, you can do it too. Oh, we're gonna try and avoid that. The hand cannoneers thing it's risky for sure because you just have to deal with those mangonels. But the thing is that a bombard cannon is a great counter to those mangonels. So this could work for Radida. The problem is that Dobbs in hot pursuit, not too far behind in the Imperial Age department. He's at around approximately 60-ish% now, and Radida running out of this window of opportunity where Dobbs is not in the Imperial Age, and Radida still kind of neglecting his economy. It's really just not there yet. He's trying to make pikemen and whatnot, and I can't help but feel that this fast imp was a bit of a wasted opportunity. If he can't take advantage of the brief time window where Dobbs is not imp and he is, then this extra fast imp isn't worth weakening his economy so much, and his town center is just super idle. I think Radida could have maybe even won this game right on the spot if his town centers were not idle. And this is the thing I want everyone to take away from this game, is that once you hit the Imperial Age, your job is not done yet, and this one is really big, and it decides games all the time. This was actually a fairly well executed fast imp from Radida. It's just that with an economy this small, the moment that Dobbs hits imp and starts making some military units, this game's completely over. His economy is just not anywhere near where it needs to be right now. He's still creating them though, so this game's not over yet. This game's actually quite close. Dobbs now up to imp, so we see a huge score increase, and he's going to pick off those bombard cannons kind of for free there. Radida moving out. He just doesn't have enough money to research Halb yet. And now the game's gonna enter kind of a dicey situation, but Rowdy Da still has a chance, only because even though Dobbs has more villagers, it's really not that huge. So Dobbs very slightly ahead. Let's see. Have I missed any questions? Yeah, I've been doing a ton of Q&A before this, but I'm still here to answer questions, of course. We'll see, Melody. If anyone has any questions, though, feel free to ask. I just haven't been getting too many of them because we got so many beforehand. Did we all underestimate Rowdy Da? I think so, I think so. Rating isn't everything, and he made a bold move, but yeah, he did actually build his economy back up a bit, so he's doing pretty okay. Oftentimes we see these like mirror matches on Arena. If you do have access to hand cannoneers, they do certainly become a critical unit in the later stages of the game. Bombard cannons are just a natural counter to the leftover mangonels and monks from the Castle Age. Great way to snipe those off from a safe distance, and hand cannoneers is a very powerful unit before those huge, strong late game units come into play. Halb coming out here for red, and even though red doesn't have all of his upgrades, blue had to wait so long for chemistry to come out, and he does indeed have chem now. Still that window of opportunity for Rowdy Da. His economy is a little bit smaller than Dobbs, but it's not significant at this point, so we're going to have to see if this will be enough for Rowdy Da to equalize this, do some damage. He's utilizing box formation. Ender Zero says, what are the plans for the Portuguese? What do you mean, Ender Zero? It's a very broad question. Recently, the Portuguese got some balance changes, some pretty colossal nerfs. So have you read the patch 5.2? Oh, this is bad. He's focus firing down that stable, taking a lot of free hits, but he will indeed back up. Look how smooth performance is, by the way, thanks to patch 5.2. In terms of the Portuguese, they got a bunch of balance changes in the previous patch, and they've just been getting balance changes every single patch. I imagine that the Portuguese are going to be relatively A-OK. Pun not intended. After the balance changes, the nerfs to Arquebus, where Arquebus no longer gives any additional projectile speed to bombard cannons and bombard towers. Personally, I would be a little concerned that Arquebus is no longer a satisfying technology to research now that it is balanced, and I would be in favor of at least discussing the idea of maybe giving some of the Arquebus projectile speed back to hand cannoneers, where it was never really a balanced problem. But I think it was absolutely the right decision to take it away from the bombard cannons, particularly, because it makes it impossible to micro against them at a competitive level. So this was an absolute disaster here for Rowdy Da. His army just getting completely cleaned up. Mostly due to, I think, a little bit of a miscontrol. And Dobbs as well, showing us that he might have been on the back foot technologically, and even from an army size standpoint, it was really close, but Dobbs just had superior control. Engaging with his paladins, just picking off the back line here for free, and then getting so much free damage on those hand cannoneers before they really had a chance to react. Like, really, you want to use your bombarded cannons to actually deal damage to the hand cannoneers. It's a 40 damage splash effect, but Rowdy Da was just not able to take advantage of that. Now Dobbs responding just immaculately well here by building a forward castle to put the pressure on. This could be the killing blow, but it's not over yet for Rowdy Da. He just needs to keep massing up some units. I think this is when his small economy is going to really bite him in the butt, as compared to Dobbs, this economy is just... he's gone full PGG, for those of you who get that reference from my old Illuminite channel. Farms idle, knees weak, arms spaghetti. There is not enough villagers out for Rowdy Da. He has not hit 100 yet, and that could be costly for him. He needs to access this gold mine, but these villagers have been seen. Really dicey situation for him. Dobbs applying pressure in all the right places. These villagers gonna get sniped off. If I was him, I would have probably deleted it. It's very easy in retrospect, but I would have deleted a hole in this wall just to make it a little more subtle. But I think that Dobbs made a really cool play by building this outpost here, so he knew when this gold would be taken, and he also just gets more information. We gotta give so much credit, though, to Rowdy Da for playing this match really well, and also he was drunk, too, so this match was actually quite close at times, and even though Dobbs pulled through in the end, Rowdy Da just, I think, did a great job early on, so even though he was criminally underestimated, I'm quite satisfied with the level of play from both players here. Ender Zero says, thanks, I agree with you in Arquebus, but about Feitoria's. Feitoria's also got nerfed in a recent patch, and I feel like you know, unless we ever plan to redesign the building, that they are very, very close to extremely balanced. That being said, these are my preliminary and personal impressions, and we're always monitoring the forums and Reddit and whatnot, and comments, messages for feedback. My personal experience after the last set of nerfs to the Feitoria. Have you been keeping up with the balance changes, Andrew Zero? With the Feitoria now generates so little stone that, at least in the recent games I've played with it, I find that the building just does not feel insane at all. Yeah, it didn't even feel that strong, honestly. Like, the Portuguese is a civ. I would be more worried about them being too weak in some respects and unsatisfying to use than too strong, as they've sustained massive nerfs in all departments. We've seen a pretty big nerf to the organ guns with the minimum range, the stone and stone generation for the Feitoria just keeps going down and down. Gold too. The Feitoria is now really costly to build. The fact that it costs stone and gold now is a huge nerf to it. It even builds slower. Like, Arquebus has sustained a ton of nerfs. I would not be concerned at all about Portuguese being too strong, personally, at least in those respects. If they do turn out to still be too strong, though, we will just continue adjusting them as necessary. But we have already taken an extensive look at Feitorias and Arquebus. So it's basically I think Feitorias are probably fine now, and unless we plan on, like, redesigning the building, I think that they're very close to balance. And Arquebus as well is also just probably close to where it needs to be. And if it's not, we will continue making adjustments as necessary, so fear not. If it turns out the Portuguese are still too good, we would be happy to chip off some additional power. And if they turn out to be a little weak now, then that's something we'll just continually tweak. The balance is an evolving process. So yes, GG, well played. Great game here between Dobbs and Radida, and I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Neil. I'm really glad to hear that you enjoyed this stream. And your Zero says, Resonance, according to Spirit of the Law, Feitorias are now useless, and some people think the Portuguese are weak as a civ. Thank you for your thoughts and all your hard work. So I would be hesitant to... So I haven't seen the analysis, but I would say that tests and things like the scenario editor aren't indicative of the overall state of balance, mostly because every game is so different, and everything is very situational, so... data and raw numbers alone won't give you an accurate depiction of when, for example, you should get certain technologies, and also how strong and weak some things are, because it's all situational. Some games, it's very difficult to replicate what a real Age of Empires game feels like in the scenario editor, because scenario editors often test ideal novel situations that don't come up too often. So, if, for example, the Feitoria was massively inefficient from an economy standpoint, the scenario editor would show that, but it could still be useful in-game because you might want that trickle of stone and gold in a situation where those resources are not available, or, for example, as the trees on the map have receded away from you, maybe you want the wood generation anyway. So, those are things to keep in mind, where, you know, those kind of like a scenario editor tests and whatnot, they can provide you an interesting way of looking at it, but actual balance is very complicated. That being said, because I have to play devil's advocate, so if the Feitoria is not cost-effective, doesn't mean it's bad. And this is something I encourage people to keep an open mind with. That being said, though, because I have to play devil's advocate and argue both sides, is that if the Feitoria turns out to be too weak, and in my personal experiences, it just felt not that excellent, we would be happy to make adjustments to it. So if it so turns out that the Portuguese don't feel strong as a civilization anymore, and Feitorias are indeed useless, then we will absolutely make adjustments if necessary. So we're keeping our eyes peeled, and that type of feedback, Andrew Zero, from you, Spirit Law, anyone else, it's important. So while we encourage people to look at balance from multiple perspectives, we absolutely do factor that in, and we will make changes to the Portuguese as necessary to get them to the point where they just feel great. House is for the dudes of Smurf. That was a great game between both of you guys, and maybe the alcohol is a performance-enhancing drug. Who knows? People have their ratings for different reasons. So maybe Radida is very good at Arena. He did suggest this map, so maybe that's it. Who knows? John Fisk says, do you think Aeroslits will get moved back to Castle Age again? It's a bit of a pointless tech right now where keeps could simply be given +3 attack. Oh, that's a good question. So we haven't really discussed Aeroslits internally much recently, but again, if Aeroslits just doesn't feel good, your guys' feedback it really, really helps move the dialogue forward. We would be happy to tweak that. We are hesitant to keep it in the Castle Age because the thing that made Aeroslits so insane was not the buff it gave to keeps, but just that guard towers with Aeroslits where you just stack a couple villagers inside them to just destroy mangonels, which are one of the best ways to remove forward towers, which are put down in the Feudal Age and then upgrade a guard tower in the Castle Age. That was just too strong. So we're hesitant. But that being said, we nerfed Aeroslits in multiple respects, so maybe it would be fine to move it back, so we'll see. Anders Aeroslits said just want them to be OP. I really personally, and this doesn't mean we're going to buff them to make them OP, on a personal level, I miss the OP Feitoria too. I don't miss playing against it, but there was just something fun about having infinite money. I don't think we will ever make them OP again, but it was fun for sure. Let's see, Linus says, it's a good unit count for Portuguese. I tried organ guns, but they have really short range, so maybe hand cannoneers would be a good complementary. You have to watch out for the minimum range on organ guns now. I think that the Portuguese could do a wide variety of armies, but I really find that you would want some bombard cannons mixed in with your army to take out siege weapons, which are good versus your gunpowder units. Bombard cannons, hand cannoneers, and then just other things. I think that organ guns are certainly a good unit to consider there. You might want something in the front line to protect the organ guns, and then that could be a wide variety of units. It could be cavaliers, it could be light cav, pikes, champions if your opponent is for some reason insisting on spamming nothing but infantry. You've got options as the Portuguese, and their broad tech tree, I think, is something that carries them through games. Sagam says, I recently played a 3-hour plus game and was playing as a Portuguese. At the beginning, the one Feitoria I built didn't really make that much of a difference, but as the game dragged on, the extra stone and gold gave me an advantage. So I think there are definitely situations where it's useful without bringing the game. I completely agree, and that's why looking at it from a cost efficiency standpoint doesn't give an accurate representation of how strong it truly is. That being said, not every game goes to 3 hours, and that's why we have to be very careful with the Feitoria, because ideally the cost efficiency standpoint would be the way to look at it. But in a really, really long game or a game with high population, those are those like fringe cases where the building can be insane. And while we don't want it strong all the time, we want it to feel okay in a game where it doesn't go to 3 hours. So that would be one of those situations where that would be good. But ideally, we want the Feitoria to be useful outside of those super fringe cases. I've played some very long games as the Portuguese, and the Feitoria feels better then, but even then it felt a little... I don't know, I'm a little on the underwhelming side. It's a very tricky building to balance. Yeah, you could even mix in some arbs, etc. Let's see. Yeah, the Feitoria is difficult to balance in the super late game. The minimum range was removed from organ guns because they were very strong, and that was just a comment. It was like that, and Condotieros caught us a little bit by surprise initially, but those two units were turned out to be very strong. We had to wait a little while to do balance changes to them, even though we were aware that they were a little bit strong due to that sort of gap after African kingdoms. But yeah, apparently organ guns were just very strong. So we were just monitoring feedback. We realized that they were too strong, and that there wasn't enough counterplay to them. And we felt like giving them some minimum range was a good way to keep the stats high, keep the unit to feel satisfying while giving it some meaningful counterplay. Yeah. Of course, with things like the organ gun and whatnot, we continually make changes as necessary. The reason the Indians don't have battle elephants enter 0 is a number of reasons. Again, it's something that was considered, but giving the battle elephants to all the new civs makes the new civs feel unique. It was one of the things that we were thinking, and we wanted it to be kind of unique to them. And when we look at the Persians and the Indians, they already have their own elephant units, so it would feel a little redundant to give them 2 elephants. Whereas, I mean, yeah, the Khmer have 2 elephants, but that's kind of the Khmer, but that's kind of their thing, I guess. So hopefully that makes sense. But again, it's something we've certainly thought about. Who knows? But we thought that like the Indians as well already have like 2 unique units, right? They already have the Imperial Camel, and then they already have the Elephant Archer. And it could even be difficult to balance for those civs too, so it's a complicated process. Yeah, so Oregon guns were certainly a lot stronger than I think a lot of people envisioned initially. Anyway, so I suppose that concludes today's FE live stream. Really hope that you guys enjoyed it. We look forward to reading your feedback. And as always, it's just wonderful to be here. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. You can find links to all the important stuff by going to the Forgotten Empires Twitch page, scrolling underneath the video player. You can find, if you follow us on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter, you will get updates on when we are streaming next. And we'll also be posting, of course, just miscellaneous news on the Age of Empires franchise. So keep your eyes peeled. And yes. Thank you, Salty, for tuning in. Yes, thank you, Melanie. Okie dokie, so we will see you all next week. The live streaming schedule may vary a little bit from time to time. And yeah, it was wonderful to have you guys. We will see you all shortly. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful time on the Age of Empires battlefield. GG, well played.